It doesn't matter how big a collection gets, there's always those one or two watches that you instinctively reach for when you don't want to think too hard about it, when you just want to grab a watch and go, a watch that you know will look good in most settings. This is where the Rolex Explorer gets brought up a lot.
I'm so excited about this one.
But let's be a little more adventurous today. See, for me, I noticed that I usually go for a pilot's watch in these occasions. And when I thought more about it, I think there are 3 good reasons for this. So in today's video, we're gonna use 3 great fleegers to demonstrate why I think your daily driver should be a pilot's watch. Ask 3 people about the history of the pilot's watch and you probably will get 3 different answers. One person might say that the first pilot's watch was the Cartier, strapped to the wrist of Alberto Santos Dumont on a blimp in 1904. Another person might cite the World War I style Zenith with big Gothic numerals that first crossed the English Channel in 1909. But in this video, we're gonna focus on the World War II type fleegers because that's the style I tend to gravitate towards and because I find the idea of dogfighting biplanes kind of comical. The JackMason Pursuit Pilot takes a lot of cues from the World War II style with a unique dial made up of Lumicast blocks for all those markers. And they glow in 2 distinct colors for extra legibility. From afar, this might look like a California dial mixing Arabic and Roman numerals, but if you look a little closer, you notice that it's just the 10 that is changed to an X. This is a subtle nod to the fact that this watch brings its own history to the table, commemorating the 10th anniversary of the Dallas-based company. Other lovely small details include the colors of the Texas flag on the counterweight of the seconds hand and the applied Lone Star logo at the 12. They've applied a bit of vintagey patina to the lume, and the anniversary watch also gets a case made of grade 2 titanium. This is a type of metal that usually remains unpolished because of its difficulty to machine. I've been told by machinists that they can get a little gunky in the CNC, but they've managed to get really clean, polished chamfers on both the bezel and the lugs. The 39mm wide case flatters a lot of wrists, and a Swiss movement allows the case to remain under 12mm thin. That movement is the La Joux Parade G101, running at 4 Hz with an accuracy of plus or minus 5 seconds, with a stout 68 hours of power reserve. And despite keeping the case so thin, JackMason has found a way to build a nickel iron cage for anti-magnetism that covers the movement. This watch is shipped on a oyster-style titanium bracelet, which features a great micro adjustment system. As far as micro brands go, I've always preferred the JackMason Micro Adjust. But if you get tired of that bracelet, you can always swap it onto a zero pass strap as you see here. We just launched this cream color for summer, so get yourself one after the video. In the hand, the Pursuit Pilot feels solid and well built with a heft that belies its titanium construction. With a screw down crown and a healthy 150 meters water resistance, this handsome little pilot's watch draws on centuries of old pilot watch design but adds its own flair. And it just kind of feels like it can handle anything you throw at it. Military watches are built as equipment that soldiers' lives depend on, and the ability to tell time at a glance is of the utmost importance. Lockco is a brand that I find to be slept on by many, but recently they've been elevating their designs. Lockco was one of the original 5 manufacturers supplying the Luftwaffe, alongside names like Lange, Wimpey, Stowa, and IWC. And fitting with that history, this Hamburg model looks to be lifted straight out of a cockpit's instrument panel. To enhance legibility, the dial of the Hamburg is ultra matte with painted luminous numerals and big white leaf hands. In fact, you'll find a liberal use of Arabic numerals on field watches and the like for visual clarity. The extra trick up this watch's sleeve is an additional GMT function highlighted by the orange GMT hand, which points at orange 24-hour markers in the periphery of the dial. And that track has a 2-tone format with the bottom half grayed out to indicate day versus night. There is a bidirectional count-up bezel with angular machined edges that has a great tactile feel. Useful for if you're dropping bombs or...
So we put it in there, soft-boiled 5.5 minutes, semi-soft-boiled 7.5 minutes, hard-boiled 11 to 12 minutes. Perfect.
The movement is a Swiss Solida SW330 with a 4 Hz beat rate and 42 hours of power. Now beware that this is a collar GMT movement, which means that the jumping hand is the GMT hand and not the hour hand. Both are useful in their own right, but a flyer GMT movement is thought to be more difficult to engineer. Now, in a previous video where I talked about watch sizing, we went into the nuances of how to make a big watch feel small. And this Lockco is a great example of that. Normally, a 43+ watch would make me run away, cursing the watch manufacturer for their inconsideration. But this Lockco has small downturning lugs that keep the lug to lug under 50. And on my 6.5-inch wrist, I find that I have no problem pulling off this watch, surprisingly. No concerns of overhanging lugs. Plus, Pilot watches just get to be a little bit bigger. That's their handicap because that's their heritage. Some B-ers back from World War II times, I think were like 55mm worn on the outside of flight suits. The watch case is fully bead blasted with a dark gray tone for that stealthy look. A little bit of AR on the crystal casts a great reflection at angles. The screw-down crown gives you a full 200 meters of water resistance. That's pretty high for a pilot's watch. On the black sailcloth strap, this watch feels professional and masculine. The Lockco's dial is one of the most legible formats that you'll find, and that's why it looks the part like military issue. Perhaps the best argument for a pilot's watch as your grab-and-go watch is its versatility, demonstrated by my very own IWC Spitfire. And to be honest, when I bought this watch years ago, I didn't have high hopes. In pictures, it didn't look any different than an $800 Hamilton. But I just thought that I should experience an IWC as part of my watch education, and within a week of wearing the watch, I saw the light. The finishing is just on another level. There's nothing about the style that blows you away, but the small details like how cleanly polished the hands are, how thin the second hand is, the fine printing on the dial, the thin polished bevel found around the bezel. All of this just communicates that this is a premium product. IWC is known for putting heaps of blue AR on both sides of the crystal, which some people have issues with because it can scratch off, but you can't argue with the clarity that affords the crystal. Plus, that blue reflecto that you get at certain angles just brings another level of depth. And that's the beauty of this Spitfire. It looks like it's ready for outdoor adventures.
Come on, man, do some of that pilot shit.
But it cleans up well. And with its black dial, its sub 11mm thickness, it can slip under the tightest of cuffs. I chose the Spitfire for an extra bit of color on that dial. It's pretty much the only difference between this and the Mark series. Both are like 39, 40mm watches, but the Spitfire has a little Fotina and that red text at the 6. However, it doesn't ship on a bracelet, and the IWC bracelet is the best in the business. Luckily, the Mark 18 bracelet is a direct swap to the Spitfire and really enhances the experience. The links are held together by solid pins that you can remove by pushing on a button on each link. The bracelet has no taper and feels really sporty. There's a clasp, and it's got like the coolest quick adjust I've ever seen. And so on the bracelet, this watch has lived ever since, and it's the watch in my collection that by far gets the most wrist time. Because again, if I'm running out the door, I just know that there's hardly an occasion that this watch can't handle. So in this video, we've covered watches from 1500 to 4500, but let me make a couple of honorable mentions. Yes, I have a hand heart on the way. We'll be talking about that in a future video, but say you want something like $1,000 or cheaper, look at some Hamiltons. The Aviation, the Big Pilot, they're all great choices. And what about a money, no object choice? I'd probably go with the Zenith Big Date Flyback Chronograph. That thing was a delicious beast when I spent some time with it. But back to the original question, which is why choose a Flieger over an Explorer? Well, the Explorer has been recommended to death. And I also just like that pilot watches are a little bigger, they feel a little tougher, a little more bulletproof. And whereas Rolex had to work really hard to do revisionist history and convince us that it was not an Oyster Perpetual that went up to Everest, I feel like pilot watches are just dripping with military history that we don't have to reinvent. Luckily, we've got so many great pilot watches at different price ranges to choose from today. Which one is your favorite? Share your thoughts with us on the new Anachronist Discord. The invite is in the description. All right, guys. Cheers.